When I was around 21 years old, I looked like this. And over the course of a few years, I came out looking like this. I know the struggle of putting on quality muscle mass, and I know how debilitating it can feel when you feel like you're force feeding yourself all day, every day, only to realize that you're not putting on any muscle, let alone weight at all, and you feel like all of the time that you're spending in the gym is wasted. So in this video, my goal is to provide a comprehensive guide for you if you are a skinnier guy that's trying to bulk up effectively and you've never done it before. So make sure you take notes, refer back to this video, and watch it till the end, because I promise if you follow everything that I am outlining in this video, you will see gains and you will feel incredible about yourself for finally doing something you've set yourself out to do in a while. But before we get into it, most people overcomplicate this. This is not that complicated. It's actually really simple. And the main thing is that you just keep doing it for a long enough period of time until you realize the results that you're after. So let's get into section 1 here. Let's understand the body a little bit. So in the fitness space, skinny guys are typically referred to as ectomorphs, and I've seen it in my comments a little bit, so people know what the term is. And, ectomorphs, or skinnier, based people, face a unique set of challenges whenever trying to gain muscle and weight. And one of the primary hurdles is just a naturally high metabolism. So this means that your body is going to burn calories faster than the rate of the average person, making it difficult to create that calorie surplus that's necessary for muscle growth. So even when consuming very large amounts of food, you may find that your weight remains stagnant due to just how many calories your body is burning throughout the day. And this high metabolism can be a blessing and a curse, because it allows you to stay lean easily, but it complicates the efforts to bulk up. You could also look at it just from a survival perspective. If we lived in more than 1,000 years ago, if you had a slower metabolism, that was actually a higher likelihood of survival because your body wasn't burning through all of the fat stores and everything. So this is definitely a perspective that we have now. So a high metabolism or a low metabolism doesn't necessarily mean it's broken in terms of biology. It's just doing what it has adapted to. Another significant challenge for you if you are skinnier and you're trying to gain weight is not only is a high metabolism a little bit of a struggle for you, but also you probably also have a naturally smaller appetite, which makes it harder to consume the amount of calories that you actually need to grow, which usually in combination, your body is probably more inclined to use the incoming nutrients as immediate fuel in the moment rather than using it as building blocks for muscle growth, which further complicates your journey to try and build muscle. So in order to overcome these challenges, we have to strategically increase your caloric intake, usually through more frequent meals or calorie-dense foods or a combination of both. And you also have to follow a program that emphasizes muscle strength and hypertrophy while making sure we are progressively overloading over time and stimulating the muscle effectively. So as a skinnier guy, you are probably going to need to focus on consuming more calories and focusing on more effective training with less overall cardio so that you can basically save those calories to do the other things that you actually want it to do. Now, if you were like a mesomorph or a blanket term, which basically, these terms aren't set in stone. Usually you're a combination of all of them in some capacity. But certain people can typically follow just a balanced diet, varied workout routine, and get very good results for a nice natural athletic build. But by recognizing the fact that you are a skinnier guy, you may have a faster metabolism, you can take your training approach and take your diet approach a little bit more strategically than just following the blanket advice that anybody else is going to tell you. That blanket advice that a lot of fitness influencers give is probably damaging your progress, because we are all genetically unique individuals. And after the newbie gain phase, you need to know things that work well specifically for you and the things that didn't. So first, we have to know how to set up our diet. Your diet and your training are both equally as crucial in terms of getting jacked. One is not more important than the other. You need both. So the right nutrition is going to provide you the building blocks of muscle growth, It's going to fuel your workouts more efficiently, and it's going to help make recovery a lot better, since the recovery is what actually builds the muscle. So in order for muscle to grow, the body requires a surplus of calories, and this means consuming more calories than what you're burning. These calories should come usually from a balanced mix of protein, carbs, and fats, because each serve a unique purpose in the process of building muscle. So for protein, always going to advise 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's the minimum. It's like clinically shown that, if you do that, you're pretty much guaranteed to get the results that you want, all else being equal. So the protein is essential for building the muscle fibers that are damaged during workouts. Carbs provide the muscle glycogen, or sugar, which is the energy needed to push yourself through these workouts and to go harder and increase intensity so that we can continue to stimulate muscle growth over time. And fats usually support hormone regulation, including those at night, like while you're sleeping, that help with muscle growth. Food timing, and I'm mainly referring to in terms of carbs, and quality food intake is going to significantly impact the effectiveness and the efficiency at which you gain muscle. So consuming a mix of protein and carbs pre and post workout might be more beneficial because, 1, you're going to have more intense workouts because you're going to be freshly fed and fueled. And 2, it might enhance muscle recovery by taking advantage of the body when it's in an anabolic state post-workout. So most of your gains are actually going to come through daily consumption of the proper amount of these foods. So over the long term, the most important factor is just daily consistency with hitting numbers. If you get it all in one meal, great. Ideally, you want 2 or 3. Any more than that, I think the gains are marginal. Obviously, unless you're going for like elite level bodybuilder, then those things start to matter a little bit more. But for most people, just over time, get the amount of calories you need, get the proper amount of protein, carbs, and fats, which we're going to go through. And so another thing we have to consider is hydration and micronutrients. You're going to get these from a variety of fruits, vegetables, and supplements, but they play a critical role in making sure that the body is functioning and using fuel properly so that it can drive performance and recovery after the gym. So think about it like this. The macronutrients are the raw materials needed to actually build the muscle, but the micronutrients dictate the efficiency in which this happens. And so I always like the number one piece of advice to enhance training sessions of people is if you're not consuming electrolytes consistently, they're a game changer. Electrolytes enhance hydration because electrolytes are the things that basically dictate how much water and how efficiently water moves in and out of cells. Think of it like a bouncer for a club. The electrolytes are what allows things to flow in and out. And the better things can flow in and out, the more efficient you're going to be in recovery and the more intensely you're going to be able to push in your training sessions. So a well-planned diet tailored to your caloric and nutritional needs is insanely important if you're looking to put on mass and improve your overall physique. So what is this going to look like? A clean bulking strategy is probably the best route as far as gaining muscle efficiently while minimizing unnecessary fat gain. So it hinges on consuming a calorie surplus from well-balanced, nutrient-dense foods. The nutrient density is to also help with the efficiency in which your body is utilizing everything that you are giving it. And so this is how you're going to balance everything out. So first, you have to calculate what is your caloric surplus. So you start by determining your basal metabolic rate, or your BMR, which is the calories that your body needs whenever you are just chilling. You're doing nothing. That's your BMR. So what you can do is you can use an online calculator, and I'll link a couple of good ones down in the description below, to account for all of these things and physical activity and your total daily energy expenditure, TDEE. So what you're going to do, you're going to use that calculator, and then whatever it gives you as your maintenance calories, you are going to add 250 to 500 calories to your total TDE in order to create a caloric surplus that is going to be conducive to growing muscle. So if you've really had a hard time gaining muscle, bump it up to 500, start there, and monitor your weight every single day so you know what it's doing. And then over time, you will be able to see the trends. Macro Factor, which I am not sponsored by any of these people, but Macro Factor's app, as far as tracking the weight, shows you those trends over time, and it's insanely helpful. And so now that we have our total amount of calories that we're going to need, we need to look at how are we going to balance these calories with the specific macronutrient ratios that we want that are going to be conducive for growing muscle in the gym and continuing to perform. So once again, we're going clean here. Whenever I say clean, it's loose, but ideally we want to try to make sure 80% of our meals are clean foods. So it's going to compromise of quality proteins, carbs, and fats in specific ratios. Proteins need to be anywhere from 25 to 35% of your calorie intake. Usually that's what it is, but at the end of the day, 1 gram per pound of body weight is the standard. And so you're going to get that from lean meats, fish, dairy. They have plant-based options if you're vegan. Really any protein source, I always recommend getting a mix. So every day I try to have an egg protein source, beef protein source, a poultry protein source, and a fish protein source. You do not have to go that far. I just like the variety because it keeps things from getting stale. Now for carbs, since they're your primary energy source, carbs should make up about 40 to 60% of your diet. Prioritizing carbs from actual foods like whole, rice, fruits, vegetables, for sustained energy and fiber are going to be big, but you also need to consider easily digestible foods like white rice so that it can digest quickly and you will be hungrier sooner, therefore you can continue to eat more. And fats, which are necessary for hormone production, need to be around 15 to 30%. My general rule is 20%, so 1 gram per pound of body weight in protein, 20% of my calories of the day from fats, and then the rest of my calories are all from carbs, and those are the only thing I am manipulating between bulking and cutting. I'm keeping everything else consistent, and then once I get up to, if like from the end of one cut to the end of the next cut, if my weight goes up 5 pounds, I'll add 5 grams of protein a day. But pretty easy, pretty simple. And so as far as fats, just try to get them from avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, whatever. I'm not super religious about fats. I just kind of get them where I can because a lot of times I get it from beef. So now let's talk about timing and the quality of our meals. So strategically timing your intake of carbs and protein around your workouts can help with maximizing muscle growth and recovery. So it isn't the end all be all, but I'm assuming you want every bit to count. So try to eat a meal an hour to an hour and a half before you work out, and then within an hour or so after you work out. So focus on the quality of your food choices. So ideally, whole and unprocessed foods, yes, they provide the calories, but they also usually provide adequate micronutrients and nutrition that your body's going to continue to need anyway. But I will say, around workouts, sugar isn't necessarily a bad thing. It'll get used quickly. It can enhance your workouts and the recovery immediately following your workouts. And Rice Krispie treats is what I normally use, but there's also supplements that are basically like all sugar that you can put into a protein shake right after workout. I sometimes have trouble eating immediately after working out, so usually that's kind of what I opt for, but I also like honey straight to the dome. Now, beyond the macronutrients, hydration and micronutrients are also going to play a critical role in muscle function. So how hard you are recruiting muscle fiber a lot of times is dictated on how many electrolytes that you have in your body. So make sure you're not only drinking enough water or fluids throughout the day, but also make sure you are consuming electrolytes as well as a variety of different foods to get the other vitamins and minerals. And if you really struggle with this, use supplements like a multivitamin or greens powder if you absolutely have to. So adhering to these types of guidelines that I've just went over allows for an effective clean bulking strategy promoting muscle gains with minimal fat increases. So by focusing on the right balance of macros, you can support your body's need to build a stronger and more muscular physique. Now, if you still struggle to get enough calories, liquid calories offer another convenient way to supplement your calorie intake, and it's particularly useful if you have smaller appetites or you are just have a really busy lifestyle. So it's super easy to make high calorie shakes. You just throw in a bunch of stuff in a blender, full fat everything if you have to, a bunch of different fruits, slam the protein powder, and just throw it back. You'll be hungry again quickly, and you're actually getting all of those calories that your body needs to actually grow muscle. So by strategically incorporating both the whole foods that are maybe a little bit harder to eat a lot of and the super calorie dense protein shakes, you're getting the benefits of everything, which is what you want to try to do, especially if you're a skinnier guy trying to bulk. Choosing the right routine, whether it's full body, a split workout, is crucial in aligning your training with your schedule, your goals, and whatever your current fitness level is. This decision can significantly impact your ability to consistently progress, stay motivated, and achieve optimal results in muscle growth and strength. So if you wanted to go for the full body route, which is just involving all major muscle groups in a single session, and they're typically done 2 to 3 days a week, this approach is highly efficient for beginners, or if you just have limited time, because it allows multiple stimulations for each muscle group throughout the week with fewer days in the gym. These routines can tend to promote just a better overall balanced look, and they're insanely effective for building a very strong foundation for strength and muscle. But they're particularly beneficial for those aiming for just overall fitness improvements or just general weight loss. So you'll also eventually probably hit a point where these workouts are going to start taking too long, and it's just not realistic to assume that you're going to get all of the volume and all the intensity that you need, because in my opinion, if I go legs and I do heavy legs, my upper body stuff is going to be absolute shit. And whenever I do a bunch of upper body stuff, I don't even want to do legs after. So eventually, most people, as you progress and get more muscle, you're going to have to transition over to a split routine, which is where you're going to divide your workouts up by different muscle groups or movement patterns and spread them across 4 to 6 days a week. And you know these splits: upper, lower, push, pull, legs, more specific breakdowns like back, biceps, chest, triceps, the typical bro splits. And these routines are going to allow for more focused and intense training sessions for each muscle group, providing longer cut recovery times in between sessions for the same muscle group. So this can be advantageous as you progress into that intermediate stage, trying to get to the advanced stage, because it enables you a higher volume of work and intensity for each muscle group within the week, because you're not splitting your time in a single session through a bunch of different groups and wasting energy on all this other stuff. You can basically put all your eggs in that basket for that training session and guarantee a little bit more effectiveness after the newbie gain phase is over. Now, at the end of the day, between full body and split routines, the overarching factor that is going to play the biggest, have the biggest impact on your results is your consistency, you progressing over time, and adhering to whatever your chosen program is. These are the biggest factors, and if you do not have this baseline, none of this other stuff's really going to matter that much. And once you have your split, we have to stress the importance of progressing over time and mechanical tension. So mechanical tension is as far as we know, the primary mechanism behind what grows muscle. And it refers to the force produced when a muscle contracts against an external resistance. So during resistance training, muscle generates tension in order to move or attempt to move a load. This tension places stress across all muscle fibers, and the body responds to this damage by repairing and reinforcing these muscle fibers, making them thicker and stronger in a process known as hypertrophy. The amount of mechanical tension a muscle experiences can be influenced by several factors, including the weight or the load, the speed of the movement, and the range of motion and its leverage points. So to maximize mechanical tension, we need exercises that can be performed with a focus on lifting challenging weights through a full range of motion and with controlled movement speeds. And this ensures that the muscles are under tension for a sufficient duration, which is crucial for triggering the repair and growth processes. So we want to incorporate a variety of exercises that applies tension to muscles from different angles and using different loads that can further enhance muscle growth by ensuring all parts of muscle fibers are effectively stimulated. And so when we look at progressive overload, all you're doing here is gradually increasing the weight or resistance over time, ensuring that the muscle continues to experience sufficient mechanical tension to promote growth. Understanding and applying the principle of mechanical tension and just understanding when your muscles are actually under sufficient loads to be stimulated to grow is going to be the best knowledge that you can give yourself in the gym. And so once you have that down, we can start progressing by increasing weight, volume, intensity, or frequency of your workouts. So this principle is based on the body's ability to adapt to stress. By consistently challenging your muscles with greater demands over time, you compel your muscles to grow bigger and stronger as a response. So you can do this, as I said, increasing weight, increasing the number of repetitions or sets, enhancing the intensity of your workouts, or even improving technique. And technique is one that a lot of people don't consider when they're just starting out. And there's a whole other video that I could do and probably will eventually do on how technique is a form of progressive overload. But more or less, with better technique, you can stress a muscle more efficiently and effectively with less weight, which also means there's more room for growth in those numbers over time, as well as decreasing your injury risk. Because if you're always hurt, you're not in the gym growing. So compound exercises such as squats, bench, deadlift, pull-ups involve multiple joints and muscle groups working at the same time. This not only allows for lifting heavier weights, but also potentially stimulates a more significant hormonal response, So by engaging multiple muscle groups at once, these compound movements improve your overall strength, functionality, and efficiency in your workouts, making them indispensable for anyone that's trying to build muscle effectively when they're starting out and trying to put on some serious mass. Now, as you get more advanced, isolation work becomes more important, but you don't need compounds per se if you're trying to build as much muscle as possible, but you're probably going to have a lot easier of a time building muscle. And if you're not using them, you're missing out. So between mechanical tension, compound exercises, and progressively overloading over time, we create this synergy that maximizes muscle growth and strength gains. So mechanical tension ensures that you're stimulating the muscle to grow. Compound movements hits multiple muscles at the same time. So if you forget about these principles, this is what leads to a lot of plateaus or potentially underdevelopment in other muscle groups and inefficiencies in your training program. For anyone serious about building muscle, focusing on these things is what's going to continue to take you to the next level every time. And you can run it till the end of time and you're going to continue to make gains. But with that being said, we do need to understand and pay careful attention to frequency, intensity, and proper form. So workout frequency is just how often you're training a muscle group throughout the week. So the optimal frequency is going to depend on your training experience, what your goals are, and your recovery capacity. So beginners a lot of times can see significant progress in full body workouts 2 to 3 times a week because there's ample recovery time in between sessions. More experienced lifters might benefit from a higher frequency of one muscle group throughout the week rather than full body, hitting these through split routines, because the overall fatigue that eventually you're going to hit from consistently doing full body workouts is going to be more than what you can effectively recover from, which is why you'll have to go back down to split routines, focusing more on individual body parts. So like doing an upper lower split or push pull legs. And it's crucial to balance frequency with intensity and volume to allow for adequate muscle growth and recovery. And it's crucial to balance frequency with intensity and volume just so you can ensure that you are not being too fatigued and start going backwards because every session your body's not ready to go. And this becomes especially important whenever we start looking at intensity. So intensity, what I'm referring to here is how close we are getting to muscular failure. It's the point at which no additional repetitions can be completed with good form. That's the key here, technical failure. So training with high intensity, so getting between 1 to 3 reps short of failure, is what I have found for me works best for muscle growth. And that's pretty consistently what science is tending to show. But you may not want to necessarily train to failure on every set because the amount of fatigue you get, like the difference in fatigue between 1 rep shy of failure and absolute failure is pretty dramatic. So for most people, they would probably be best stopping about 1 rep shy of failure so that they can also mitigate fatigue. So me personally, I do enjoy training to failure. But if I do train to failure, I'm only doing 2 sets per exercises. And if I need more volume or need to do a little bit more work on that muscle group in a session, I will do 1 rep in reserve or 1 RIR. And I will usually add an extra set so that I can consistently get adequate volume without the overall fatigue that I might get from that exercise. But I typically am going to recommend to not go to absolute failure until you have proper form on exercises. So form is a non-negotiable because 1, you're going to be able to maximize muscle growth through it, but 2, you're going to be able to prevent injuries. So each exercise needs to be performed with a focused on controlled movements, ensuring that the target muscle groups are effectively worked. So avoid the ego's temptation to lift heavier weights at the expense of form. I know it looks sexy on the gram. I know you see a lot of powerlifters running massive weights and you think it's going to change your entire life. But you will get hurt if you do this. I've done it. One of my other best friends snapped both of his patellar tendons and it wasn't necessarily a form issue, but it could have been. So if your goal is to build muscle, you should only care about stimulus. So total weight shouldn't be what you're going after. It's just a way to increase intensity over time, and adding load should be seen as a tool rather than the end all be all whenever it comes to trying to grow muscle. Now, if you are going to strength, then proper technique is only going to allow you to lift a hell of a lot more weight over time because the efficiency of your movement is top notch. Yes, it'll be a little bit longer at the beginning, but there always hits a certain point with strength athletes where if their form is dialed in, it's slow, 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 and then their strength just shoots up. Because once your body figures out how to efficiently move a weight from point A to point B, it is so comfortable with it, your numbers are going to skyrocket. So, and just a few additional tips for training. So just make sure you're warming up properly. Whenever we're trying to grow muscle, we also want to make sure that we're staying in the gym. So we want to do everything that we can to prevent injuries as much as possible. Injuries are going to happen, but we want to be able to stay in the gym for as often and consistently that we can, which leads me to my next point. Listen to your body. Adjust your training if you feel like you're having excessive pain or your fatigue is too high, because the rest and recovery is just as important as the workouts themselves. So you may do some mobility work, incorporate mobility work, or just stretch. I personally don't really. I get my mobility work from actually moving weights through full ranges of motion. That's just my personal philosophy, but that could help. That has helped a lot of people. And just make sure you're staying hydrated and fueling your body properly, because that's going to play such an important factor in how effective your training sessions are. And you compound those over time, your results are going to be so much better than if you didn't focus on it. That I can assure you. And so sleep and recovery can't be overstated here, because sleep is really where most of the magic happens. And it's when your body goes into repair mode and overdrive. And so if you're not getting enough sleep, your body is spending all of the energy it could have spent on building muscle on doing everything else it needs to do to keep you alive. So you have to get adequate sleep so your body can repair everything else and then move to building muscle, because that's pretty low on the brain's priority list during sleep and the body's. And so now is where we can get into a little bit more of the staying disciplined, the mindset, the motivation behind it. Because a lot of times when things aren't progressing as fast as you want it to, you tend to get a little bit cynical with stuff and you tend to look at things in a more negative light. So this is important, because this is what's going to keep you going when things don't seem like they're going well. So first, we have to understand that we need to set realistic goals. Your goal is not to become the next Mr. Olympia. Your goal is to add 5 to 10 pounds of muscle in 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, depending on where you're at in your journey. But let's just say our goal is to add 5 to 10 pounds. This shit is going to take time, and you have to remember that. Rome was not built in a day, but damn it could be built in a couple years. Always have the long game in mind, and keep your goals small, measurable, actionable, SMART goals. Keep them smart. All right. Once you hit one goal, you can always go to the next one. So in order to do this, we need to track our progress. Keep a detailed record of your workouts. So exercises, weights, reps, sets, as well as your diet log, so that you can use an actual notepad. I use apps. I use Google Sheets, and I use Macrofactor for nutrition. And you are going to want to regularly take progress photos, ideally at the same time, same day, every week, and just compare those over time. So tracking these things allows you to see the changes, no matter how small, and it serves as a powerful motivator because you're going to see these changes and you're going to reaffirm to yourself, holy shit, this is working. And all I have to do is keep doing this and I will get to where I want to go. But it also helps you identify what isn't working so you can adjust your plan, because nothing is going to go, anything in fitness, nothing is going to work with the first plan you set out. You are always going to have to adjust certain things along the way. So keep that in mind, but you keep track so you know what you have to change. What isn't measured isn't managed, and you have to celebrate these small wins and recognize and celebrate every small achievement that you get along the way, whether it's sticking to your workout schedule for a week, adding 5 pounds to your bench press, or successfully resisting junk food. Acknowledging these victories reinforces that positive behavior, i.e. dopamine, and it keeps you motivated to continue to go back for more. But you have to also expect things to suck sometimes. Setbacks are part of the process. Anything worth doing is going to also have its shit sandwich involved. So if you miss a workout or you indulge in an unplanned cheat meal, don't kill yourself over it. Don't be too hard on yourself. Stay flexible, adapt your plan as needed, and focus on getting back on track. Viewing your fitness journey as a marathon, not a sprint, is going to help maintain a healthy perspective on how all this stuff's going, and it keeps you motivated too. Not only that, but you will also be able to start to look at the bigger picture in other areas of life, and that's been the biggest thing for me as far as from fitness to life. That's been the biggest thing, is always keeping in mind the big picture, and one small setback doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things if you keep going. And so when you're experiencing these setbacks, you have to educate yourself and continue to learn so you can continue to apply things that might work for you and try things out and see, because over time you're going to find a bunch of things that don't work for you. And by educating yourself, you're going to be able to see what are some other things that does work for me. So articles, instructional videos, fitness podcasts, they can give you new insights and techniques and even inspiration that's going to continue to help push you forward. So what about supplements? I've mentioned supplements a couple times. You thought I wasn't going to get there. Here I am. So they can play a very supportive role and a very crucial role in terms of muscle growth, complementing a well-balanced diet and consistent workout regimen, but they are not the substitute for real food or hard work. They are meant to be supplemented, not the actual primary source. And I'm always going to recommend a good multivitamin just to help get a broad range of micronutrients. Since I know that I'm getting as much as I can from foods, so I will always recommend using a good multivitamin to help getting some of these micronutrients. But I know that getting all micros from food can be a challenge for a lot of people, and it even is for myself. So I do opt in for a multivitamin, protein powder, and creatine. So protein, we know its use. They're very convenient, and usually doing them post-workout can be very good because whey protein typically is metabolized a lot faster, gets into the bloodstream faster, therefore kickstarting your muscle growth and recovery process. But it digests super quickly, which means it's an effective means of getting extra calories for a skinny guy. And so creatine is probably, if not the most researched and supported supplement for increasing muscle mass, strength, and exercise performance, as well as some potential cognitive stuff. So it works because it increases the availability of creatine and phosphocreatine within a muscle, which is going to help sustain energy during higher intensity exercises such as lifting weights and supporting faster recovery in between sets. So long-term creatine supplementation has actually been shown to enhance overall quality of training, leading to more significant gains in muscle mass over time. Keyword over time. You still have to stick to shit. So all of these supplements can aid in muscle growth, but they should not replace anything. This should not be something that you do like, you should not only consume protein shakes for your protein sources, because you are missing out on a lot of other essential micronutrients that you can get from other protein sources. So just make sure, if you're going to take any other supplements, do research on them. Make sure they're not a marketing ploy, which most of them are. So other than that, I hope this helped. If you need clarification on anything that I went through in the video, leave comments. There's so much more that probably could have been said here, and I could probably make a 3 or 4 hour video on it, which, who knows, I might one day. But hope this helped you guys. Leave comments. There's some stuff down in the description. Until next time, peace.